done a reading about Patrick before? Because I feel like I have. I feel like I have, but I don't remember what I said. But I can tell you right now, he's just very confused, unsure of what to do and like what decisions to make. Like part of him is like, okay, I kind of want to try, I kind of want to pursue this and like turn it into something, and that's why we have the Page of Wands here, you know. But also there's the feelings of like thinking that he needs to let go. You know, there's like, okay, I think I should probably let go. I think this probably isn't working, but not being able to let go. And part of the reasons why there's that inability to let go is because of this Four of Pentacles, which is like misplaced sense of safety, misplaced sense of comfort. So like part of those senses of safety and comfort are probably in a relationship, you know, and tied to you. So it's like, that's where all of that confusion is. My recommendation, especially for him, even though I'm not talking to him, is to create some distance and probably do some self-work, you know, because all of this confusion, all of this really not knowing what to do and like what choices to make, it's at the end of the day probably going to end up hurting you both, you know, because we have the Eight of Cups in the reverse, which is a card that's like, okay, this is a situation that really isn't bringing me any more happiness. It's not bringing me any more fulfillment. It's no longer adding to my plate. And then on top of this, we have the Five of Pentacles here, which is a card it's struggling, you know, it's like really hanging on by its last limbs. And part of this is like, okay, I'm putting myself in positions that are making things worse, that are causing me to struggle more, that are not making the situation better, you know, and that includes not walking away, not leaving behind the things that you need to leave behind. And that's mostly for him and not for you, you know. But regardless, like, he knows he probably should walk away, but he's not going to walk away, is what that is. Does that make sense? You know? I hope that makes sense. Ba-da-da-da-da. Oh, hey, he posted a YouTube video. I'm gonna watch it later. I love how that's what you say. Anyways, you feel like that's me, though? I, honestly, it could probably be the both of you, you know? It could probably be the both of you with that same feeling. It doesn't have to just be him, you know? Which is why I'm like, I think that there needs to be some distance, you know? I think that there needs to be some space so that way you can adequately work on creating feelings of comfort and safety within yourself and not needing to be in a relationship. So do you think we're done? I think you guys need to distance yourselves from each other, okay? I think you guys need time apart, okay? I think you guys need to work on yourselves. And after that, then maybe, possibly, but that would literally just depend on like, because once you do inner work, once you've like worked on yourself and created new foundational systems, sometimes you don't want the same things as before. So that would just depend on what you end up creating, who you end up becoming, you know, and if that's something that you still want, and if that's something that you can even really connect with, you know. I want to say no, but really that's just something that depends, okay? That's just something that depends because that isn't set in stone. Like, that's kind of still fluid. Does that make sense? Let me see. But you feel like he will go somewhere else? Then let him, you know? What you should not worry about what he does or who he's with. What you need to worry about is your sense of safety, your sense of happiness. Because if you're consistently putting in all of this time and energy on like, okay, but I don't want him to leave, I want to be in a relationship with him, what you're doing is you're taking energy away from you. You're taking energy away from your own happiness, and you're leaving yourself depleted, you know? Like, I understand that you want to be with him and you want to work, but sometimes things don't work out, and you have to be able to let that go. You have to be able to be like, okay, if it's meant to be, it will be, and if it's not, then I just have to find something that'll still make me happy. That's not going to be the only thing in life that'll ever make you happy, and that's not going to be the only person in life that will make you feel that way. It's just a matter of being able to let go, because if you still hold on to that, then you are keeping yourself from feeling happy. You are keeping yourself from amazing opportunities that'll lead you into better places, you know? You're holding yourself back by keeping and holding on to things that aren't for you, that aren't currently making you happy. I absolutely know you will move past this and be able to move on. It's just a matter of, number one, do you want to move on? Because you can't move on unless you actively want to move on. You know, you have to put in the work and the effort to move on. You can't just consistently sit there and be like, oh, but I miss him. You have to be like, okay, yeah, I might miss him, but I'm going to focus on my own happiness. I'm going to do things that make me feel passionate. You know, I'm going to curate my own life. I'm going to build myself up, you know, and through that process, you'll be able to move on and be better than you currently are now. So it's the process of, like, number one, do you want to move on? Are you going to allow yourself to move on? Are you just going to stay stuck thinking about the same things? You know? Does that make sense? Yeah, I would still say stay away from your situationship. And also, just don't get in a relationship right now. There are a lot of, like, cards here that are just not the best for a relationship at all. Like, number one, we have the King of Cups in the reverse, which the King of Cups in the reverse, is very bad at dealing with their emotions, you know, like their emotions are consistently overcoming them. They are consistently being persuaded by their emotions, and it's hard for them to have any real stability, you know, like whatever they're feeling in that moment, that's what they go with. And so this card asks you, you need to bring in some emotional stability. You need to make sure that not every decision you make is dictated by your emotions, because sometimes if you're just following your emotions, it will lead you in the wrong direction. And on top of that, we don't have any inner stability here. Like the Four of Pentacles says that our inner structures, like where we find our sense of safety, where we find our sense of comfort, like what makes us feel stable, is in the wrong thing. So we need to create those structures within ourselves. We need to find a way to make sure that we feel safe, we feel comfortable with ourselves, by ourselves, and that we don't need any external support, or we're not putting those things in other situations or other people, you know, because you need to have that baseline foundation, really, because once you start to put those things in stuff in other people or situations, then if that situation or if that person leaves, then there goes your sense of safety, and then you feel chaotic and all over the place, and it feels like everything is falling apart, you know. And so in the general sense, there's a lot that needs to go on, like a lot of growing, a lot of establishing boundaries that needs to happen. And that whole process is feeling very hard. You know, it's feeling like, okay, I'm trying, I'm doing what I can to do it. Like I'm attempting to make things better, but it feels like nothing's happening. It's feeling like no progress is being made. And sometimes the reason why it feels like no progress is being made is because you're right in the thick of it. You know, you're seeing everything happening every day. But if you were to look at it from a different perspective and stand back, you would see that there is some progress being made. So sometimes it's just like, okay, like you're expecting all of this change to happen overnight, but all of this didn't happen overnight. You know, all of these negative tendencies, all of this misplaced stuff, you know, all of these emotions that need to be worked on, it didn't happen overnight. It took time to develop, which means it's going to take time to undo, you know? So just keep that in mind. It's okay for it to take its time. It's okay for it to not happen all at once. And if you need to, like, take a break and be like, I'm too in this, take a small break, you know? Just be like, okay, let me stop focusing so much on trying to fix myself and trying to make me better, and let me just enjoy this moment as it is, you know? Because it's really hard to constantly be like, okay, I have the energy to want to make myself better. I constantly want to work on myself. Like you're gonna have moments where you're like, I'm just tired of always working on myself, you know? And when those moments happen, just take a break and just admire how far you've come, you know? Because there are going to be changes, and sometimes when you're so close to it, it's hard to see, honestly. But right now I don't see anything major happening, you know? Like I wouldn't make any major decisions or any major moves outside of you working on you, just because there's a good chance that if you did that, it wouldn't lead to where you wanted it to lead, you know? Because the Ace of Wands is a card that's like, okay, you're making a bad decision, you're making the wrong move, things aren't working out, because this card lacks a little bit of the passion, you know? It's just not following its ambitions, which makes sense because right now you're too focused on other things. So I wouldn't make any major decisions right now in this moment. And then when we're talking about love life, the main reason why I'm like, I would not recommend you getting into any sort of relationship or talking to anyone is there's just a lot of healing cards here. Also, hi guys, and yes, these are only paid readings. It's $10 for a mini reading, $15 for a regular, and $20 for an in-depth. We have the Five of Swords in the reverse, and the Five of Swords is a card that just feels betrayed. It feels very hurt. Like this card feels like someone sort of stabbed you in the back and like they manipulated you. And so when this card comes in, it's like, okay, well, we need to work on the hurt that was caused to us, you know? Like, that's what it is. We have to work through that hurt. We have to work through that pain, and we have to let it go, because holding on to that hurt and holding on to that betrayal, it's only going to keep us stuck in the same place. You know, that's really what it is. And we can't go anywhere. We can't grow. We can't learn. We can't advance. We can't experience the happiness that we want to experience if we're still holding on to that betrayal and hurt. You know, so this is one of those cards that says, hey, number one, it's time to work through that, and it's time to, you know, try and release some of that. But in this card, like, this card is less about the betrayal and hurt and more about finding a way to move on from it and finding a way to move through it. Does that make sense? You know, but there's just a lot of misplaced stability here, because you know how we had the King of Cups in the reverse, which is like emotions chaotic all over the place and not having any real grounding. We also have the King of Pentacles in the reverse, which is like those emotional structures just not really having a good sense of them. Like I said, not having a good sense of stability, not having a good sense of safety, or comfortability. And also in this card with the King of Pentacles in the reverse, there's not a very good connection to community, you know, like people whom you're normally close to, like that inner circle. There's some discourse there, you know, people really not understanding each other properly, possibly some arguments, you know, which leaves you feeling sort of alone and by yourself, you know. The good news is usually this discourse in the community doesn't last forever, but I think in your case, this is probably a sign that maybe you need a different community altogether, you know, where it's like this might not be the community that is going to help you learn and grow, which is why there is all that discourse there, and that's why you're not feeling super connected to them, you know. So I think that's what that is, because you have so much learning and growing that needs to happen. With, as we can see again with the Sun in the reverse, the Sun in the reverse is a card that's like, at the end of this journey, you feel just like a new person. You feel revitalized, you feel energetic, like it feels like a whole new you. But in order to get there, there is that learning and growing that has to happen. There is that inner work that has to happen. There's setting up boundaries that needs to happen, you know? And all of this is something that needs to happen before you can get into a relationship that is going to bring you happiness, that's going to bring you contentment and all of the things that you want, you know. And it's going to be a very chaotic and overwhelming journey at times. So it's a rough one, but I think you can do it, you know. It's just gonna take some time, honestly. But other than that, did you have any questions? You want to know if you and Gavin will be friends again? No. Honestly, it's looking like a no. Sorry, I was reading what people said. Anyways, right. The main reason why I say no is because, number one, we have the Five of Pentacles, or at least not anytime soon, you know? We have the Five of Pentacles in the reverse, which is a relationship that is literally struggling to survive. Like, it is not doing very well. The communication is not going very well. It's like really on the verge of like being non-existent altogether, you know. It's like really on its last legs, you know. It's struggling for sure, and that's where you guys are at right now in this moment. The good news is usually this card is only temporary, right? But this card in the reverse usually says that there's someone or something making this situation worse, you know. It's like actively not helping the situation by doing things that just really hurts instead of helps. And what's really needed here is this Ace of Swords in this reverse moment, where it's like, okay, we need to take a moment to reevaluate things. We need to really take a moment to like change our perspective, change the way we're looking at things, change the way we do things, you know? Like, there's this need to just mentally reevaluate everything and how we look at situations in general. The main reason why I'm like no is because usually when this reevaluation happens, when you like have that change in perspective, it also changes how you feel about situations and how you feel about people, you know. And there is no guarantee that like when people come out of that they'll even want to re-engage in that relationship and like be friends again. Like, there's a solid possibility that coming out of that you'd be like, actually this is something that's just not for me, and I need a different whole friend group, you know. So there's just like a lot of reevaluation that needs to go on. And we also have the Moon card here, which is like we need to really do a deep dive into our emotions, you know, like trying to figure out how we feel, why we feel what we feel, where these emotions are coming from, just to really like dissect it all, you know. But the short answer is no, not right now. And the slightly longer answer is you guys might not be friends again. But regardless, there's like some personal change that needs to happen, and through that personal change, the relationship just might not survive that. I'm not gonna lie, right now they're in this phase where they just feel like really depleted, You know, like everything's really exhausting. It's a lot overwhelming. And the main reason I know this is because number one, we have the Ten of Swords right here in the reverse. And the Ten of Swords is that card where it's like you just feel really drained. You feel like a situation is just taking everything from you. And like when this card comes, you have to like take a moment and be like, okay, let me focus on me. Let me heal. Let me rejuvenate. Let me re-energize myself. You know, like this card requires you to put more energy and focus back into yourself. So like they're just really depleted. On top of the depletedness, there's just a whole bunch of not clarity that's surrounding them. You know, they can't see situations very well. A whole bunch of confusion, and that makes sense if they've been completely drained, you know, if they're feeling all that depletion. So this card also asks that like we need to take a moment and take a step back and be like, okay, let me try and bring in some clarity. Let me try and see situations a lot clearer, you know. And then on top of all of that, they're just feeling like really misguided, you know, misguided, lost, don't know where to go, those types of things. They're probably also hanging out with the wrong peoples or the wrong crowds. But all of this in relation to how they feel about you, like they need space from you is really what that is. They need space to figure out what they need to do, where they need to go, what's going on. Do I think that they're going to come back? Yes. And the main reason why I say yes is because of this Ace of Cups in the upright, and then Ace of Cups in the upright. Like aces in general in the upright are usually yeses, you know, but this card is a card that's full of abundance, emotional happiness, and it's usually going to come back, you know. Also, we have the Four of Cups here in the upright. This card is a hard-headed and stubborn card, which means that yes, eventually they probably are going to come back, but that's not something that's going to happen anytime soon, mostly because they're very hard-headed, they're very stubborn, and they're going to fight the things that they know that they should be doing, you know. Either that being leaving you alone or coming back, one of the two. Regardless, they are going to come back and you guys are going to have some type of communication again, but like they're still going to be super hard-headed and stubborn and reluctant to try new things and opportunities, which almost gives me the feeling that you guys might end up stuck in the same place again, you know, like in the same situation. But I would just say do you for right now, you know. That's what I would say. What's my name? My name is Beans. The reason why I'm like this is so interesting is because none of these cards are like feelings of like I like you type things. This is more about like balance, honestly. Balance and fairness. What, can I ask what this conversation was about? Yeah. Balance and not 100% being on the same page. I genuinely, whatever you guys talked about, I don't think they're feeling the exact same way, you know? That's what I'm thinking, at least not right now in this moment. And the main reason I say that is because we have the Justice card in the reverse, which is a card that's like, it doesn't feel like things are fair. It doesn't feel like things are even. It doesn't feel like its voice is being heard. Those types of vibes, you know, it's like, I just don't feel like I'm being respected or valued in a sense. And in this case, I just think it needs a little bit more time. I think you guys need to work to bring in that balance, because we have the Strength card, which is like, okay, this is something that can be fixed. It's just going to it's going to take patience. It's going to take time. It's going to take energy, you know. That's really what it is. And then we also have the Six of Pentacles, where it's like, this card is balance. It's like, okay, you're giving 50%, I'm getting 50%. You lean on my shoulder, I lean on your shoulder. This is a perfectly balanced relationship. We've been friends for years. You're coming out of a bad, long breakup, and now we're hanging out a lot. Okay, what it could be is like they just feel like maybe you're leaning a little bit too much on them, you know? But regardless, there's a sense of like, okay, it really could be like, I'm being here for you, but I don't know if you're here for me in that same way and or aspect, you know? But regardless, there's a need to make the relationship more equal than it is currently. There's also a need to like communicate better. You know, it could be where it's like, okay, one person is talking and the other person isn't listening, not really actually listening to what is being heard and said, you know? Honestly, I don't see anything happening in your love life. Like, I don't see you getting into a new relationship. I don't see anything of significance happening. And honestly, if I'm being honest with you, I see that you are misjudging potentially situations. And the reason why I say that is because we have the Judgment in the reverse here, right? And when this Judgment in the reverse comes, especially when we're like talking about love, it says that the potential people that we're trying to get into relationships with are probably not the best. Our reasonings for getting into a relationship are not the best. So this card asks you to reevaluate like why we want to be in a relationship, why we're trying to pick whoever we're picking, and like just really do a deep dive into those things, you know, because there's a problem there in the reasons of why. And another reason why I'm like, I don't see anything of significance is because we have the Strength in the reverse, right? And the Strength in the reverse says that you don't have strength, you don't have patience, you know? And that typically happens when it's like, okay, we want to get in a relationship, we're trying to get in a relationship, but it's just not happening the way we want it to. It's like, okay, things are falling apart, things are not doing what we want them to, and so we just kind of feel very defeated, and we feel like, oh, like we just lose all of our motivation and strength. So this card asks, hey, number one, we need patience, you know? We need to wait. We need to find our courage and find our strength. Number two, we also need to leave some things behind. We have the Six of Swords here, which is a card that's like, it needs to let go of things that are bringing it chaos and just making it feel stressed out and overwhelmed, but it's still holding on to those things. It hasn't fully let go, which is bringing in that chaos, which is probably why we're being asked to rejudge some things and rethink some things, you know, because we're probably allowing that chaos to enter our life, which is just making things a lot harder for us than we need. Does that make sense? But I don't see you getting in a relationship, or anything of significance happening in the love life. And more accurately, there probably just needs to be some self-evaluation that's going on. Why are most of those cards upside down? Because they have a different meaning upside down. And fun fact, all of them are upside down.